nice that I can be here, and welcome to the Motv workshop. And yeah, as you already heard, there's if you go into the repository on vSync and then Motv workshop, you can post if you have problems or questions here in the issues, and I try to remember to actually look at them from time to time. But yeah, let's dig into Motv. As I already heard, and I have no Spanish experience at all, you already know that what kind of software you are dealing with here. It's a web-based software that runs in Electron that can be used to combine different kind of visual modules with each other, and yeah, using web standards so that it's portable and yeah, is using JavaScript as Sam and myself are loving this to do this. But before we actually go into the more details, I just want to make sure that if you want to follow along, it's needed that you actually set up Motv, which is described also on the workshop page. So yeah, let's go quickly onto the Motv repository. So Motv is also open source. You can find it also on GitHub. And the latest release that we are actually using for today is 3.19.1. And yeah, so this would make sense if you want to follow along that you actually have this locally. And yeah, so when you start Motv, what you should see are actually like two windows, and then everything is fine. One of them is the main window where everything is about to happen in terms of modules and composition and stuff like that. But I will show this in a second. And what you also will see is an output window, which is just used for putting this on a second screen or a projector or something, so you can have like the output of the visual stuff that you are creating somewhere else. But before we go into this, I just want to talk a bit about the history of Motv, so you have a bit idea of what we're doing here. Motv actually means modular visualization because you can like connect different kind of modules with each other and to create like unlimited kinds of outcomes. So everything can be combined with everything, and it looks different. So this is why we, or like Sam came up with the name modular here, and visualization, of course, with the visual parts. So when I'm talking about Sam, I'm talking about Sam Ray, which is the founder and core contributor of Motv. He created this software in 2014. And my name is Tim Pietrusky. I'm also core contributor. Back in 2014, I created a software called Nerd Disco Studio, which was also something to generate visuals in the browser. But as I saw Motv in 2016, when I did a collaboration talk together with Sam and the performance for .js in Paris, Europe, yeah, I was just wanted to use Motv as it was so advanced compared to what I had and was working so good. And when I'm talking about performances, and this is like one of the main things that we are using Motv for, we can also find like a nice gallery here where we collected some pictures of what we did so far. And this is like actually the show that we did in 2016 in Paris. And there you can see like an older version of Motv, with like a nice output. And we also sent like this output, what we generated here, onto some LEDs and playing some music. So this was pretty nice. And also another very nice stage was for JSConf EU. Oh, this video is not found. Thank you very much. Wait a second, where was it? Where we had like this big kind of projector. I think it was like 6,000 pixels wide, and this was one of the biggest stages that we used Motv yet. Also controlling the DMX lights here with some other software that I created, and everything in the web and everything open source. And also some performances. But if you want to look deeper on how this actually looks like or what the end result could be, then feel free to look at this and maybe also on our websites. Yeah, and that's it basically. So we are working on this since then and trying to make Motv better so that everyone can use it. And this is also why we switched to Electron, so it's like actually portable, and you don't have to deal with all of the dependencies that you would have if you install this yourself. And this is why we chose Electron. And some of the APIs that we're using back then when we decided to use Electron were only working in a Chrome-based browser, so this is why we have chosen Electron. Okay. And yeah, if you want to follow along, I try to do as much as possible what is written here in the workshop description, and you can find some more information about like the different parts of the user interface and what we call these things, but I will show this in a second in Motv. But just so you know, if you get lost and something doesn't make sense, then you could look into this workshop repository and see like the explanation of these things to get you going. Output window, that's fine, and also like what the menu has in place. But yeah, I will show this when we actually coming to that. Okay, and this is what we start now, is to actually add a module to the group. So if you are in the just here and want to follow along, this is like we are in number 2, and then you can jump to add a module to a group, and this is what we will start right now. So switching to Motv. And as you know, that because this is like Electron, I can also like increase the font size or like the zoom level, however I like it. And I think just for the sake of the stream, I will actually make it a bit bigger so you can see it better. Yeah, and the main thing that we have here is a group, and in a group you can combine different kind of modules with each other. And this is what we want to do first. So we have this gallery here, and the gallery holds all the visual modules that Motv has built in. And what you can also see if you hover with your mouse over the specific like panel, you can also see in the info view some explanation on what this is actually doing. But as I don't want more space, I will just remove or like not remove it, but replace it in a different position, as I actually know everything and don't need the info view. So this is also what you can do. You can rearrange the layout as you want it, and yeah, make Motv look like it makes sense for you. And if you somehow screw it up and you don't like what you did with the rearranging, you can always go to View and then reset layout. And if you do this, it will just go back to the original one. So this is just a tip if something is happening, because like, I mean, as this is like an open source product and we are only doing this in our free time, of course, not everything is perfect and there might be bugs in the user interface and everywhere else. So yeah, this could happen that you create a state of the layout that's actually not usable anymore. Exactly. So, but we want to use the gallery and want to create our first module here, and we can use the search bar over here to find a module, because we have like a lot of them, and scrolling through them, I mean, it's nice to explore stuff, but if you want to, or if you know what module you want, you can just type it in. So I want a text module, type in text, and then I have this text here, and then I can click and drag this into the group if I want to. I can select it again and remove it with the backspace. And if I like click on the group and double click on the module, I can also add it to the group. So this is like the 2 ways of adding a module to a group. And as you see here, you don't see anything, as the modules are, when you add them, not enabled. So this is what I'm doing here. I will enable it. And then when the module is activated, you can see in the properties inspector what kind of properties this module has in terms of what you can change to make the visual look like you want it to have it. And there's no text here, so I would just add Motv in action. And there you can see like this black glibberish thing over here. And this is because for every drawing circle, we are actually drawing right now on top of each other. So if I'm just changing the module here, you can see that there are more like letters are added, but they are not like removed from the previous frame. And this is because the initial setting for a group, and I just opened the group preferences here. So the group has these preferences behind the arrow. And if I click on it, I can open this menu. And the important part for us right now is inherit. And it says on inherit previous group. And yeah, we don't want to have this because this means it will just inherit from itself because it's the only group right now. So we say don't inherit. And it's still not changing anything here. So we also do a clearing. And clearing means with each frame that is drawn, like the frame that was before is just removed. So we have like a clean state with every cycle of the loop. So, and yeah, let's increase the size of the text a bit more. We have a lot of like these sliders here where you can click and drag, and then you can increase the numbers. This is one way of doing it, or you can also right-click it, and then you get an actual input field where you can also type in what you want. So going with 50 here, hitting enter, and then we are back on the slider view. And what we could also do is maybe change the color here, which opens this color picker. And this is like one of the only things that is a bit annoying right now, but we are on it to fix it, is that you cannot actually close this thing because there's no closing button. So you have to use your system-specific ways of actually closing something. I think on Windows it's Alt F4. On Mac it should be Command Q, I think. That's it. So yeah. So if you're stuck with this color picker here, then you have to close it. You have to click on it and then use your system-specific keys to actually close it. And could also play around with some other options here. Also change the stroke color here to something else. Close it again, and you see that whenever I'm changing a property here, it's actually updated in real time in the output and in the main output preview. And what you see here is also then reflected on the Motv output. And right now, this is like a very small window. You can also see like the sizes in the preview window is like 349 by 328. And if I'm actually changing the size here, I'm also changing the size of the preview here. But yeah, so one tip that I can also give you, if you have not such a powerful computer, it makes sense to leave this output window smaller, because then the frames per second are like higher, because it's like the bigger the output window you have, the more intense your computer has to work for actually rendering that stuff. Okay. Yeah, and as I also did this in the workshop, I will maybe also try a different kind of font here, which is just using whatever you have in your system fonts installed, and you can change that. Okay. Yeah, as I already showed you, we can also change other group things here. Like the most important for me usually is when I'm creating like a new project here, that I change this to don't inherit and clearing, so that I only see the output of this one module here, not like the same stuff drawn all over again. But you have also other options here for the group. Yeah, so for example, pipeline would mean that that the group is not drawn, but the output is like given to the next group. But as we only have one group here, this has no effect right now, so that we can ignore it for this. And we can also change globally the alpha settings of that group if we are dragging the slider here, which we can also do for the module itself. So every module also has these alpha property where you can change that. And what you can also do is play around with the blend modes, where we have like a lot of things, and also composite modes. But we will also see this later as, yeah, I mean, if you have just one module, there will not be so many changes here. Yeah, and the same thing goes for every module. You can also change the blend and the composited modes here. Okay. Then I maybe check already if there's anything broken for someone. No issues here. Okay, nice. Then let's get back to Motv. And yeah, to make this more interesting, or to actually show like other kind of modules, so what I call these kind of modules that are actually drawing something, or like having like kind of base elements, are just for me like, yeah, elements that draw something, and everything else that is changing the output of one module. For example, in this case, the text, I call them filters. And one filter that I really like a lot is this 2D filter Pixelate, which we can drag into the group, enable it, and you can immediately see that it's changing the output. It makes it, yeah, like the title says, it tries to pixelate it to make like it look like more pixels. And if I'm changing the amount here, you can see that the pixels are getting bigger depending on how the value is here. So I would just go with this right now. And yeah, don't change anything else. I mean, we can also see that there are some sound reactive thingies here. Some of the modules that are in Motv actually have this capability of reacting to sound, like with built-in properties. But how this is working, I will show later, and I will use like a different technique. But yeah, it doesn't matter right now actually how this works, like, because we could go deeper in this direction anyway. Okay, and this is like also the stuff that I said in the beginning with modular visualizations. You see that we have the text module first, then this little arrow goes to the right, which means then the output of this module goes through this module and goes on and on from left to right, from top to bottom. If we have like more module groups, then the output will always add on top of whatever came before. And what we can also right now do is actually also play with the blend modes. And you can see if I'm choosing multiply here, then it actually changes the output. It's not only having this pixelate effect, but it's also yeah, changing the blend, which is nice. And yeah, maybe they take some difference here. Yeah, and if you follow along and you maybe lost me because I'm maybe too fast, we actually did the text module here. We changed some group preferences. We added this pixelate module with some stuff, and yeah, we always try to have like a step-by-step guide here. So you could, in theory, also just do this workshop on your own without watching this. So don't worry if you cannot get everything, because everything is written down in very detailed sentences. And what we did now, or like also, was the change the module preferences. Yeah, so let's add another group, which is happening down here underneath the first group. You have this new group button, and if I'm clicking this, it's adding a new group, which is also by default deactivated. So we can activate it, and a double click in to the new group field or the new group title is actually adding or opening like an input field, and you can rename the group and say whatever, like my awesome group, and hit enter, and then it's saved. And yeah, so if you have like multiple or like if you want to group specific kind of modules together, and you don't want to have like a super big list with, I mean, what you could do here if I'm doing like this and adding like many modules here, then it maybe is too annoying for you to actually scroll here, and it's getting too big, and then you can just create more groups and have it like more organized way of having all your modules. And what you can also always do is just decrease the size of the interface. I mean, at some point you cannot read it anymore, but this gives you more space if it's too crowded. Yeah, and then let's take another filter that I also really like. Optical flow distort. You could add here, also enable it, and you can already see that something is changing here. What we set the alpha to 0.5, blend to color burn. Then we have this nice effect, and actually when we get back to pixelate and change the amount, you can see that there's some kind of fog around it and changing. And what you can also see is that it's not removed, or like it's drawn again on top of each other, and this is why we didn't change the group settings here. So when we open the group settings for the second group, we still leave it like with previous group, so that we get the output from this group and the filter applies on top of that. But we want to say maybe clearing, and then we can see that nothing is drawn anymore, or like it's not as visible anymore. I mean, it's still drawn, but it's removed with the next frame, and it's not so good to see anymore. But you might see later on, if you're using this again, when there's some kind of audio activity, there's actually some kind of like stuff happening, these kind of waves going through and making a nice effect. But yeah, for a still thing where nothing's happening, this filter is not doing so much. But for the when we have some kind of audio later on, this will make a lot of sense. Yeah, and when we're happy with what you created and want to save the preset, we call this preset, then you can do this by going into File and then Save Preset, or you can also use Control Shift and S and Command S and Command Shift and S on Mac. Click Save Preset. Then wherever you want to do this, I already have my stuff on. Oh, where it is. The Motv workshop, and there we have some presets inside, and then I can save, okay, my awesome preset.json. So we're actually saving everything into JSON, so you could look at what you created. It's not in any way decrypted or something. It's just plain JSON that we are saving, which means that we are saving the whole state of Motv from this point of view and into a file, so that you could load it again and have like the same kind of settings in a different environment. What we don't saving is the layout of Motv, so it's really just the kind of groups and modules that you have and all the settings that you change in the modules. So if you want to port the preset or not the UI view to somewhere else, you actually have to open the dev tools, which you can always do via view, toggle developer tools, and yeah, if this this is, I said, is Chrome or Electron, then you can actually do this, and then under application there you can find it. But I mean, this is not about how to hack the user interface. We're just going with the presets now. This is fine enough. Yeah, in the same way that you load or save a preset, you can also open the preset with File and then open preset. And then clicking this dialog opens, and then you can find your preset and load it. And what we can also see, like if you have the Motv workshop repository on your local machine, there you can find some folders, some example images. No, not example images. It's example images, some modules, and the presets that are like whatever is created in here in this workshop, you can actually find as a preset. So if you get stuck and have no idea how to actually get some kind of stuff that is written down in the README, you can go into the presets folder and load the things. And to show you where this actually belongs to is we are right now with save and load preset, and we always linked the preset that where we are right now in the workshop belongs to. So the stuff that I just showed is actually in that preset, and you can load it, and yeah, have the same kind of thing that is written down in the README. Yeah, and in a perfect world, there would now be a breakout session where you could play around with the stuff that you just learned. But as this like kind of masterclass kind of style, I would just do this for you and see what is written here. So play around with Motv, get used to the user interface, add modules from the gallery and change the properties in the module inspector, and change the blend modes and to make them interact with each other. Then just add some more stuff, maybe the ASCII art over here, which is producing like this nice ASCII output. But in order to make this more visible, we would actually need a bigger kind of base visual, as right now what we only have is this kind of text, and transforming this text into like kind of ASCII thing, it's not very visible. So what could we also do? Maybe add this broken LCD here, which gives us this thing. But yeah, if you have also seen, like some of the modules are actually drawing on like filling the whole screen. So everything that was before is still drawn, but as this module, the broken LCD, is drawing like over the whole picture, like everything before the module is not there anymore. So what you then can do, if you just still want to have the text, you can draw this or put the broken LCD thing like before the text, and then the broken LCD thing is drawn, and then all of the other modules that came afterwards. And if you enable the ASCII stuff again and make this a bit bigger, we can actually see something. And the flickering, can I just deactivate it? No. No glitch here. Glitch spread. Yeah, maybe the broken LCD is not like the best example. I just use what kind of module? The brick pattern. Just in the brick pattern here, disabling the ASCII again, and you see like this brick thing is drawn here. And we can make the bricks like this and fill it a bit more. And maybe get rid of the optical flow this sort, like that. enabling the ASCII again, and then, yeah, I mean, you might get the idea of playing around here and adding modules and seeing how the combination of different modules are actually changing how the visual output looks like. And yeah, this is one of the things that I love very much about Motv is to actually go into the gallery and pick a module and see what is actually doing. And what you can also see here is that you always see like the module that you're hovering with the preview of what is actually currently visible, and then on top the module if you drag it along. So you always have this nice little preview, and some of these modules, like here, this collapsing architecture, is just drawing on the whole screen, and this is why nothing is happening. Or like nothing's happening, it's just not visible. If we go back like this, remove the brick pattern, and also enable disable the ASCII art again, you can see that we have this pixelate here, which makes the collapsing architecture very pixelated, and also the text. And as the pixelate is with the blend difference, it looks like this. We could also do it like that, and then we actually have just the pixels of the previous modules. But I really like this one here, so you can still see something from the output before and have the pixel effect. Yeah. Let's get back to the issues here. Maybe something happened. No, everything is still fine. So you can even maybe you can follow along, or I lost you completely, or everything is just fine. Like the last time we had this workshop together with Sam, there were like a lot of problems and a lot of things were not working for many people. But yeah, this was some kind of system or Mac specific problem because there was some update and now some permissions were not working anymore. But this is solved and everything should be just working out fine. Okay, so yeah, nice. Welcome back from the breakout sessions. It's nice that you played around with Motv yourself, and yeah, we're going to the next section, which is adding an image into Motv, because like usually what many people cannot do or have no idea about is like actually writing their own visual modules, which we come to later on. But what usually everyone has is some kind of image that they want to use in Motv and then add some effects on top of it. And this is what we will do now. So I will just get rid of the broken LCD. So click on the module and then backspace, brick pattern, the same thing. Don't want to see that anymore. We can also leave the ASCII art, is fine. And yeah, that's okay. So if we want to add like our own image, there's a module called Texture 2D, and I'm putting this into the search bar in the left of the gallery, and then you can see this Texture 2D module here, adding it here, enabling it and clicking on it, so the module inspector is open, and there you can change the texture, which could be like a group, like you could like draw another group in this sense. In this position here again, you could draw a canvas, which means like any of the canvases that are created for any of the modules are like available here, because everything lives in their own kind of canvas, and you could in theory grab the output and use it. What you want to do is use an image. But before we can actually do this, we need to add the image into a folder where Motv can find it. And for this, you can go into File and open Media folder. And there you find like the system specific path from Motv, where we like save all of the, or like where Motv is expecting at least all of the media files that you add yourself. And there's a folder called default, and you go into default, and yeah, you can find all the other folders that are actually supported in terms of media files. We come back to like ISF later on, but what is important for us right now is image. And here I already have a lot of stuff because yeah, I'm using Motv a lot, and what you could do if you don't have any image is you if you go to the wait a second. If you go into the folder where you have the repository and go into images, there is this Motv logo, and you can put this into the image folder of the media folder that we just opened. And when you have done this, you can actually use this as a texture in Motv. And right now, which is like a bit of a pain, is that we cannot use SVGs, as we are using off-screen canvas, and this is just not supported. But yeah, hopefully this at some point will be available, and we can actually also use SVGs. But for right now, this is why you see a lot of PNGs here, because what makes a lot of sense in Motv is to have like transparent parts on the picture, because then you can just add some kind of effects on the parts that are not transparent, which is really nice. So yeah, adding this into the media folder, selecting again the texture 2D module, clicking on it, and the texture property, we select image, and then it shows you a list of images. And if you have done this, like if you have selected image and add the image afterwards, the only thing that you have to do is then click on another like kind of property and go to image again, and then this list is updated. So this is like one of another thing that could be improved, so that is actually reloading when the image is added. So what we are selecting here is the Motv logo in my case, and I want to scale it down a bit because it's very big right now. You can also get rid of the text here, and we have this nice thing in here. And what you can still do the scaling, and you can like move it around if you want to, but 0, 0 should be just always the middle of the output if you want it like that. And you can also play around with the Y offset. Okay. Yeah, so this is the image part, and we will come back to how this can be animated in a second, because I want to now also show you another thing that we put into the repository, which is like an example module that you can load. And before we actually add modules into Motv, as we did with the image, I just want to give you a reminder, or like a note that if you are actually using stuff from someone else, please always check that the license actually allows whatever you're trying to do with the module. And if there is no license, you actually have to talk with that person and get a license. Otherwise, of course, it's not allowed to use that. For example, if it's like a commercial thing that you're doing, and the license is just like CC, whereas most of them are not like usable for commercial things, then of course you are not allowed to do this. And please respect the wishes of the authors of these kind of modules, so that everyone is still happy to share their stuff online as open source projects. And if you are not respecting the license, then everything is not so cool anymore. But yeah, some of the stuff is actually commercial purposes ready when it's the MIT license. So yeah, all of the modules that are in Motv are MIT licensed, so you could use them wherever you want them, and we made sure that everything is completely legal in that regard. So it's like open source, or it's like for non-commercial and commercial things. Yeah, but yeah, if you pick some stuff from like platforms that are actually hosting visual modules, for example, ShaderToy, which is like a big platform for people to share their GLSL shaders, and like by default, it's the non-commercial license. So if there's nothing written differently in like the code of the module, then you are actually not allowed to use this commercially. Everything on CodePen by default is MIT if it's not changed by the author, and the modules that I like the most are from ISF, which is like a standard for shaders, which is called like interactive shader format, and they also have like a lot of shaders that you could just drop into Motv and use, but they don't have like in their specification, they don't have a license field. So it's actually always like you actually have to talk with them or find like a comment here. What the license could be. For example, in here it says, okay, Creative Commons non-commercial. So you could actually also just use this for your non-commercial projects and not for something else. But yeah, we're coming back to this also in a second. So yeah, this is like kind of the small lesson on how using modules from someone else if they're not yours. But yeah, like I said, everything in Motv is MIT, so you're good to go and can use them. You can also check the source code because this is like the requirement for MIT stuff, that you actually publish the code and you find everything in Motv in a repository. There we have the sample modules folder, and there all of the modules that are in the gallery exists here as code. And yeah, if you want to take a look at any of them and yeah, get inspired, or just want to write your own stuff, it is a good starting point because like we try to collect everything that if you find that is actually MIT in here, so that other people can just use them if they have no experience with coding that stuff, and to make the entrance level very low. And we are trying to deal with all of the problems in integrating that stuff. Okay. Yeah, and most important, thank the author if you're using something. And it's always nice to know that the stuff that you did, someone else is using. And yeah, it's very important to keep the open source world happy. Okay. Looking back at the issues here again, nothing is here. It's cool. So yeah, we want to add like a module into Motv, and you can pick one of the modules that we have in the modules folder. We have like the circle module and this torus and like a ShaderToy starter, and this is what we want to do. So in Motv again, to File, Open Media folder, going into default again, and I want to use the ISF module in there. Where do I have it? So in the workshop repository, we go into modules, and then there is this ND torus, which is one of a basic torus thing that I created in the ISF spec, and you see the file extension FS stands for fragment shader, which you could just drop into the ISF folder in here. I will just not do this as I already have this in here, but you could just drag and drop this over there, and then it's actually usable directly in Motv, as this is like hot reloading the stuff that you are changing or like if you add a module there, it's hot reloading and changing the gallery here and adding it to the gallery. And on the same kind of perspective, you could, in theory, if you want to change the module yourself, you could put it into this folder and open the file then in an editor and then change it, and Motv would then update it. So you could also develop your modules in Motv if you want to. And we also have the errors that if there's something wrong in your module, you would actually see this also in the console here. So if you open this, then you could see problems in your shader or in your Canvas 2D modules. So if there's something wrong, you could actually also develop it here in Motv. But this is going too deep. This was just like a side note if you actually want to write your own modules. So what we do here is trying to find the ND-Torus one, adding it over here into our group after Detector 2D. And then, yeah, you see that this torus is drawn on top of everything. And if we like rotate it or like use the rotation property after selecting the module, then we actually see that this is rotating. Which are pretty nice, but we don't see our image anymore. And the whole thing, what I wanted to show you is how to actually make something nice effect with the image. And this is what we, yeah, to make this like a nice like trick on making modules visible again that are drawn before something. I selecting the ND-Torus module, and for the blend, I'm actually using a composite mode right now, and the one that I really like to use is the source in, and this will then make it possible that the image that we have before with the nice transparent thing is drawn again, and the torus is also drawn, but only where the image is like filled, and everything else where the transparency is still transparent. And if we do the rotation again, we can see that we can see the torus, but also the logo. And this is like a pretty, or like one of the most pretty effects, or like basic effects that I love to use in my shows, or like music video, as this is the goal of this workshop. So you can have like your own kind of image that you like, and you want to do something with it, and then have this effect on top of it, and like any of the other modules, which is pretty nice. And this torus module also comes with an auto rotation, so I don't even have to rotate it manually anymore. And then we already have something that looks pretty nice. Yeah, it could be that this is already very slow for your computer. So if this is the case, like I said before, you could just make the output window smaller and smaller and smaller. And then, I mean, you also see that the output is changing, because like this is always related to, it's not changing like the output of the modules based on the aspect ratio of the output window. So you have to adapt this again, but just to, if you have problems with your computer and it's getting too slow, then you could just resize it. But I'm leaving it like this, so I can see the full logo and my module. And going back into our thing here, so what we did right now is add the module into Motv, which you showed is actually part of the repository, so you can use it, and also the effect to make it visible. And if you have both the Motv logo in your modules folder and the ND-Torus one in your ISF folder, then you could also load the custom module JSON preset and have almost the same effect. as I have it here. Yeah, no open issues. Nice. So yeah, but with like a few kind of combinations of these basic things, or like for me, from my point of view, basic modules, because I'm using this all the time. Of course, for you, this is not basic, as you have maybe never seen this before. This kind of combination of modules is creating, like, from my point of view, like a very nice output, and this already looks pretty decent. And yeah, what if like all of the modules that are prefixed with this ND stands for Nerd Disco. I just prefix everything that I create myself with this kind of prefix, so that I don't clash into other kind of names for stuff from other people. Yeah, and if you use one of my modules, it most of the time is some kind of rainbow color palette, because I liked it just very much. But of course, you could change this if you don't want to have these colorful things with some kind of effects. But yeah, I will not go into deeper with this. Just a side note of why this is so rainbowy. I just love this color, or these colors. Everything that is colorful is super nice from my point of view. Okay. Yeah, so what we also cover here is creating your own modules, but I will not go into this direction here. We have like two guides on how to create like a 2D module, which means Canvas 2D, where you can just use JavaScript, and we explain here on how this looks like and what you have to do. So all of this information can be found on the official Motv website, which is like modv.vsync.gl, and there for version 3 that we're actually using right now, you find some other information that are like, yeah, also important on how to use Motv. But yeah, this is too much. And what I would recommend, if you have some experience with shaders or want to get your shader stuff into Motv, I would recommend ISF, the specification that I showed earlier, because this gives you the possibility, when I'm going to back on editor isf.video, this gives you the possibility to use this web editor if you want to, and in this kind of format that they defined, you can also say, okay, I have an array of inputs, and these kind of input elements can then be used in the code. So you could add these inputs and then change parameters, and these inputs automatically are displayed in the user interface of Motv. So everything from this editor's one, I maybe just open this so you can see what I mean. Oh, and it's in between screens. Nice one, thank you. I have all of these inputs here, and like, for example, this radius X that you saw in the user interface of Motv here is just defined as like an input in this specification, which is called ISF. And this is pretty nice, because then you can have all of the parameters that you want to change your modules in here, and then people can actually use them. And this specification is also usable in other kind of software that is written on the ISF website. So it's not just workable in Motv, but if you create it like this, you could use this also in other software, which makes these modules interchangeable, which is pretty nice. But yeah, this is too far. I don't want to show you how to develop stuff. It should just be focused on the built-in things and the stuff you can just use without any coding skills. Okay. So, and the thing that I really love the most about Motv is the possibility to use audio. And if you followed the preparation at the top from this workshop, you can use this audio stuff, and I will show you in a second how this actually works. But to explain you what we are using underneath, so there is this project called Midi, which can analyze the incoming audio in real time and then giving you some they are calling this audio features, and we are also calling this audio features in Motv. Audio features, which are like the audio split into kind of properties that you can use, and then use these values inside Motv to animate something or to change some properties from some modules. And like a small demo we created here. We just have to wait until it's transpiled. Where we have some audio input, and then you see what kind of data we can extract from that audio, which then can be used to change properties in Motv. Or maybe I should have opened this before. Anyway, so coming back to this demo in a second. Yeah, because like usually what most audiovisual programs give you is like access to FFT, which is also pretty nice, where you have like this kind of waveform and like the frequencies over time, and like the like if there's like a high tone, and then you have like a higher value on this higher range of the frequency, and if not, then you have like no values there, and then you can change or like you can grab some kind of frequency range from the whole audio and then do something with this data. But this is usually too much, or like too hard to actually use this kind of raw FFT data, and this is why that we love using Midi. Maybe I would just open the Midi website. Yes, open the microphone. And you can also see that we like the data that is like right now, my voice is converted into this waveform, which is usually what you have with FFT. They have all of these data from low frequencies to high frequencies. And what Midi is doing is then creating some calculations based on this. One of the ones that I love the most is the root mean squared, RMS, which gives you like an idea of the loudness of the whole data that's coming. So if like the if they are like regardless of low and high frequencies, like the sum of everything is then put together and then squared, and then you get this kind of one value of your whole audio, which is way easier to use than picking like one of these frequencies and doing something with it. And then you get some other things where you can actually get what tone is it that you are hearing, and other nice things. And Sam, that is also the creator of Motv, is also part of this Midi team, and this is why we are using this. And it's also in JavaScript and open source. So if you want to have some audio extraction, then I recommend that you also use Midi. It's pretty nice software. Okay, and now this is also loaded, and here you could see actually the same kind of information, the waveform visualized here, and then all of the parameters or the audio features that get extracted, like the energy, and if I'm loud, then this value increases, which is nice, and like RMS, as I said before, no noise means a value near 0, and the louder I get, the higher the value gets. And this is just for explaining how this looks like. Writing as F module, go away here, open the issues again, and everything is maybe still fine. Okay, cool. But how can we actually use this? Which is then the audio routing part. Going back into Motv, down here, left or right to the gallery view, we have this input config, and then the second tab is the input device config, and there we have to choose audio and video. And this is usually the thing where most people have problems with, that these fields are not filled out at all. So this is usually the case when the video input is like grabbed from some other application, and then Motv cannot access any video input. I mean, it's not great that this is coupled together with the audio stuff, but it is right now, and we hopefully can change this at some point. So, but if you have problems and nothing is shown here, you should click on the video input and select one of the devices, even if you don't want to use this right now. So, but yeah, this is just some kind of limitation here right now, that we need to have like a valid video input source to actually have an audio input source. And if you follow the audio routing guide and you are on Windows, there's this virtual audio cable that you installed, maybe, or something else, because to actually get audio into Motv, we need some kind of virtual audio interface to pipe the audio from the system into Motv, because otherwise, I mean, it cannot like get some kind of audio that you want to play. Or if you don't want to visualize any music, you could always select a microphone. And here the same problem: if the microphone is already selected in another application, then it's not workable, because like only one application can have control over this the audio input thing. So just make sure to select something that is actually not used by something else right now. But yeah, let's take a look what it says here. Yeah, so to actually test if this is working, or like the stuff that I usually do here is I go to a microphone maybe. But I guess I have the same problem right now, because I'm using this one and this one at the same time. I guess it will just not work anymore. But anyway, I will just use this one. Maybe it's just working. Yeah, okay, and if it's like actually selected, then it's working. But you don't see like anything changing here, because like we don't like have a visual representation of the audio input that is analyzed, but the analyzation is already happening. And what I'm doing there to see if the audio stuff is coming into Motv, I'm going back into the gallery, searching for waveform, and using the waveform module. And just to have more space here, I'm adding the new group, adding my waveform here, enabling it. Just get rid of the other ones for a second. Yeah, and as you see, because we have audio input for the microphone, my voice is analyzed in real time, and I see something here. Just make it a bit bigger so you can see the waveform better. But this is like usually a very good test to see if the audio source is connected correctly and everything is fine, because if the waveform is not moving, then you don't have audio in Motv. Okay, but we have audio, which is pretty nice, but the microphone, but I don't want to use the microphone. I want to actually use some music. So that we can create some little audio active music video. So I'm going back to the virtual audio interface on Windows. It's cable output, or like any other application. I think in our guide, what was it on Mac? It is sorry, where is it? How to use audio features, introduction. Oh yeah, sorry, it's getting started and then audio routing. For Mac OS, we recommend Soundflower, and I think maybe like there's also other applications. If Soundflower is not working for you, we actually should update this, because I think I'm using something else on Mac OS, but I can't remember, because like usually I just configure this once and then it just works forever. And also it's working with Pulse Audio on Linux-based systems. Okay. So going back to my virtual audio interface, and you see nothing is happening here, But if I start the music, that can be anything, like anything that plays some kind of audio on your computer is then grabbed by this virtual audio interface, and yeah, whatever, if it's a YouTube video or SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever, so you can just play this, and then it gets piped into the virtual audio with the virtual audio interface into Motv. And I have like a song here from an artist that I discovered recently, who is called like JSConf. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it correctly. I'm very sorry if I did it wrongly. And the song is called Fools, and I created like a music video for this recently, and this is why I'm also using this here. And you can see that it's coming into Motv. And if you actually change the volume of this audio thing in your player, then you also like decrease the amount of data, or like the frequency height that we get into Motv. So take care of if you're trying to generate some audio directive stuff, that you always have it the audio input at like 100%. And not like lower or higher, because like in a real world scenario where you would like do this for a show or something, then you would always get like the full strength of the audio and not something else. So I just decreased the audio here and just going back to 100% and making sure it's like that. Okay, stopping it right now. And yeah, so this is kind of the audio routing stuff, and I'm just checking the issues again, because this is usually the thing that is most of the people have problems with. So yeah, follow the guide here, and if something is wrong, then please let us know, and then we try to adapt our guide on how this audio routing stuff works. But if it's like set up once, it's usually just working, and this is pretty important for the next part. Or you just use the microphone. That could also be the case. Yeah, so we want to create an audio directive visual and assign an audio feature to a module property. Let's go back into Motv. You can also get rid of this one here, just disabling the group where we had the waveform, enabling our group that holds the module here, and yeah, I just make this a bit like that. Just leave the optic flow distort because I like it. Collapsing architecture can also go away. Yeah, maybe we just leave the text here. That's fine. Okay. So we're selecting the ND torus one, and just for making this more visible again, I changing from blend source in back to normal so that we can see the full output of the module. And let's see which module. Oh, I just see that I forgot to update the screenshot. So actually, the screenshot here is from when we did the workshop the last time, where we had like a different kind of module because we collaborated with Eliza and Alethea. They had created some super nice module, but as this was only, we only were allowed to use it for this workshop, it's not publicly available. So this is why I added the ND torus one, but I forgot to update the screenshot. So don't wonder if this is actually not there in Motv. This is not built in, and we don't have access to this module anymore. This was just for this other workshop. So I have to change this screenshot here, but this doesn't influence on what I want to show you. So yeah, the module is activated. The module inspector is open. I click with the left mouse on the radius X here, and you can see if I'm changing this, I'm maybe disabling the rotation here. If I'm actually playing with this, then we are changing the radius of the torus and making it smaller or bigger. And this is something that we would love to, or that I would like to make audio directive now. So clicking on this, going into the input config. So back here, besides the gallery, before we were on the input device config, and now we're switching to the input config tab. And you can see that now, okay, the active module and the active property is seen here. So whatever we are doing now in the input config is changing this specific module's property. If I'm clicking on maybe radius X or rotation, you can see that the headline is updating. And the same goes if I'm using like a different module, clicking on the module, and then on the property, you see that this input config is then specific for this property. Going back to the thesaurus and clicking on radius X, this is what we want to animate. And yeah, just selecting RMS. And if there is no audio yet, you see that the raw value of RMS is currently 0, because we don't have like any audio input. The music is not playing. And you also see that the value of radius X is now 0, because now this property corresponds to whatever the value of this audio feature is. And as the audio feature is 0, our value is also 0. And I just right-clicked on the property, and this is what we saw before in the demo on Maida, and like the demo that we created for the audio feature explanation. Even if there's no audio, the RMS value is still like exists, because there's always some kind of noise there. So this is never actually 0. I mean, it's a value below 0, or no, it's not a value below 0, but it's a value that is near 0, I would say. So you can see that something is happening, but yeah, right-click it again, and then we start the audio. Going back to the start. And now you can actually see that the property of this module is updated based on whatever the RMS value is. Yeah, and if we want to change this value even further, we in the input config again can go to expression, open this area here, and there we can see, okay, we have this value. And I just stopped the music again. So this value corresponds to the RMS value. So this value is actually the RMS value, and we can change this value by some expressions. And by that, if you go back into the README of the workshop, we have some example expressions here, which you could integrate and see what the output or the outcome could be. And in this case, if I'm just using the value times 2, then yeah, as you would expect, nothing is happening, because we are multiplying 0 by 2, and this is like nothing. But what we could also do is say, okay, our start value is 1, and we add it to the value here, so that there you can also see then that this value updated to 1, so it will always start with 1, and adding the RMS value on top. So starting music again. So we have now like a base size that is not it doesn't get any lower than this, and the base size and everything that we are doing with the audio activity is adding on top of it. But yeah, maybe this is too jumpy, and we don't want to have these kind of fast changes of the value, because like this is like analyzed live the audio that we are becoming. So it could mean that there's fast changes between loud and not so loud like sounds, and then this value is very jumpy, and then you can also see that the output is accordingly jumpy. And if you don't like that, you can play around with smoothing, which is below the audio feature, also in the input config. And like a value of 0 means that that there's like no smoothing, and we can start the music again and see this. And if you increase the smoothing here, you can slowly see that the changes between the previous and the current value are not as big anymore, which makes it maybe nicer to look at, or not too jumpy. If you see this before, it was like this. Not even sure. I mean, maybe you cannot see this in the stream, but if you're trying this out yourself, then it's like fast changes, and this is like way better to look at. Maybe we are activating the rotation again here. Yeah, and this is like one way of doing this. What I really like is to also have some kind of if-else thing that you can achieve with the ternary operator here. So what I really like doing in my presets is actually triggering like different kind of, or like changing the values based on a threshold. So like if it's like loud, then something else is happening when it's not so loud. So we can actually also do this here. We can go back to the radius, and maybe we copy and paste what is written in the README, and like this is like a magic value that I'm always putting here, like 0.3 for this kind of music that I like to visualize. It's mostly electronic stuff, and this is usually when it gets louder, then it's mostly above 0.3, but it always depends on the audio source that you have, and also like on the loudness of the audio track that you're having. But as a baseline, if you're creating that stuff and changing these expressions, you always lose the same kind of music when you're doing these changes for your preset, because otherwise it doesn't look so so it cannot the modules cannot be combined so well anymore if you have like these ternary operators, but using different kind of thresholds here. But this is just my point of view and my experience. But of course, you can do whatever you want. It's just like what I see, what I like most is where there's like mostly the same thing with different modules. But anyway, so if I start the music again, and the value goes above 0.3, then I want that it gets way bigger, and you see like when it's below, then it's very small. Maybe you don't like that, maybe just say value here. Maybe make it even bigger. Also change the smoothing maybe. But yeah, so you could have like a baseline where everything is very small at the beginning, or like the value is small, yeah, or bigger, whatever you want. And of course, this is like where I usually spend the most time in actually trying to find the correct expressions, tweaking around, and like listening to the music over and over again to make these kind of settings perfect. And I mean, what there are like a lot of other things, and you should try them and see if this makes sense for the music that you're playing, and maybe or like this music that you like, and maybe you find something that works for you best. But what I mostly use is RMS because the value is always between 0 and 1, and this is like the most easy for me to use it. And what I also really like is a kick, which is because Motv has a built-in beat detector and can like more or less good actually detect when the kick is coming in a song. I mean, it's better for slower music than like more faster music. For example, in drum bass, it's like kind of hard to find the kick goodly. I mean, it's working, but it's not like perfectly the kick. But this is also something that I could show you here, maybe with this checkbox. So I'm assigning the kick here, and the kick is just 0 between. It's just true or false. It's just 0 and 1. So if you're adding this on to like a checkbox which is also true or false, and adding the music here. So when it detects a kick, you see that the rotation is triggered again. Maybe we're doing this smoothing a bit better more. Which might or might not make any sense for some of the properties. But as everything can be connected with everything, it's just possible to do this. And going back to here, just leaving it like that. So yeah, so this is like, yeah, makes more, like for me, most fun is to play with these audio features, and you should do this too. This is a lot, or it makes a lot of sense, and it's very nice. And looking at the time, there's not so much left. I also showed the smoothing part, which is pretty nice. Then, yeah, this would be the breakout session where you could play around with some audio effects, but I already showed you RMS and kick, which I love the most. Yeah, in the repository, you can also find techniques to get certain effects, which means that we used some base modules in Motv and created the preset from them, and you can also find them in the repository. And if you load them, you can see these kind of effects, like here the tunnel effect, which is pretty nice. And I will just open this, saving this preset as my awesome preset here. Yes, I want to replace that. That's fine. Then Control O is opening the open dialog. I will just do this in the menu again with File, Open Preset. And then we are doing the, where is it, the tunnel effect. And wait, oh no, this is again, why is this not working? It was working when I tried it. So yeah, just imagine that it's working. I think, oh no, it's because there's no audio. Sorry, yeah. So this is one of the like older modules that we have inside, which has like the audio capability built in, and because there's no audio yet. But if we select the audio again, we have this nice effect that's the concentrics, which are these two circles that are drawn and like circling around each other, and with the scale effect, and the scale effect just makes it that it looks like it's like flying towards us, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so there are some modules here or like presets that you can try out and get started if you have no idea what you could actually do. So this is some kind of inspiration that we added in here for you to, yeah, make something nice. We also have like a guide on how you could use Motv for live performance. One of the things that is maybe important for like not so powerful computers is that you can actually limit the frames per second. And back in Motv, in the bottom left, we have this frames per second counter. And if you double click on it, it opens the frame rate options, and then you can just limit it to something that, yeah, makes more sense from your point of view. Maybe 30 is something that is still actually gives like decent results, but it's yeah, it's not causing your computer to overheat. And we also explain how you could use OBS, which is like a streaming software or like a stream recording software to record this locally, stream this via Twitch. This is actually what I'm doing right now to give you my signal to how this works and how this can be used. And the last thing that I would love to show you is how to use a MIDI controller to control Motv. And in this case, I'm using a Korg Nano Control 2, which looks like this, which has some kind of buttons and faders and knobs, and is attachable over USB to the computer, and it can be used then via web MIDI. And I already have it attached to my computer, and I will just open my preset here again, selecting the torus, then selecting in the module inspector the property that I want to control with my MIDI controller. In this case, it's maybe just taking the rotation, and then back into the input config tab, we have this MIDI section, and can open it, and then there's this learn thing here, and as we have the rotation, I'm using a fader. So if I'm clicking learn and then moving my fader, then it actually maps the input from the MIDI controller to this control, and now I can change this how I want it, and you don't see anything as the radius axis. Radius axis it's too small, so we're doing 1 plus value again as we had before. And if I'm just using the fader now, you can see that I can change the rotation. And this is pretty nice to change modules output, without the interface and just with some hardware stuff. And what I also love to do usually is for live shows is I want to enable modules, and then for this example, clicking on enable here on the torus, and then the input config, and then the MIDI stuff again, and then I'm using a button on my Nano control, clicking learn, clicking that button, and now I can activate this module how I want it, going back to source in as we had it before. And now if I want to just show the logo without the torus module, I can click the MIDI button, and this is way nicer than, I mean, if you have many modules and many groups, then this is way nicer to use like an actual hardware device to change this. Yeah, and we are enabling the rotation, kicking in the audio again, maybe adding the flow distort that I showed before, and now with the movement, the flow distort also makes way more sense, because you see this nice effect here. Yeah, and that's basically how you get started and can create some nice stuff for any audio input, and with your own images if you want to create a music video. And I just let this kick in here. Maybe make it bigger. Increase the size of the logo again, and then yeah, that's it. You now know how to get started with Motv and use it. Changing here the output with and this is also pretty nice, or way easier if you have the MIDI controller here and you listen to the music. You can trigger certain effects based on your capability of feeling the beat and getting in the rhythm, and yeah, this is pretty nice for live performances. Maybe also do this with the floaty sort. Wait a sec, what could we change here? Nice, no. Okay, then
we can start wrapping up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it for today's session. If you want to follow along and do this yourself, go to GitHub and go into the Vsync and then Motv workshop repository. Feel free to do this in your own time, and if you want to join the discussion on GitHub, we have on Motv also the discussions if there are some questions with the software itself. Of course, if there are problems with the workshop, then open an issue. And yeah, there's also like a small troubleshooting guide here if something is not working for you. But yeah, in the future, if there's anything that you are creating, please tag Motv. We are on Instagram and Twitter, so you could find Motv there and make sure that we see what you do, so we can be happy that you're actually using Motv.